Chapter 7 Destruction All Around. In the morning, we decided to leave the house. The artilleryman wanted to join his troop, and I wanted to return to my wife in Leatherhead and take her out of the country. However, between Maybury and Leatherhead lay the third cylinder. The soldier, being more experienced, filled up a flask with whiskey, and we lined every pocket with biscuits and slices of meat. Then we crept out of the house and ran as quickly as possible down the ill-made road. Along the way we passed heaps of charred bodies. Struck by the heat ray, all the houses we passed were deserted. We reached Byfleet safely. Out of the reach of the heat ray, there was chaos all around. People packing their belongings and soldiers helping them pack and load their wagons. On our way to the Thames River at Weybridge, we met patrols of soldiers warning people to move now or take refuge in the cellars as soon as the firing began. We saw the railway station crowded with people. The ordinary traffic had been stopped to allow the troops and guns to charge. I heard later that a savage struggle occurred for places in special trains that were put in at a later hour. The fighting was about to begin. We heard a heavy explosion which shook the ground. "Here they are!" shouted a man. "Yonder, Dyer, see them? Yonder!" One after the other, one, two, three, four of the armored Martians appeared. Far away over the trees, as they came towards us, I saw one of the extreme left flourish, a huge case high in the air. It was the deadly heat ray. We were near the River Thames at this time, and people were all horror-struck and stood in silence. The terrible heat ray was in my mind. "Get under water!" I shouted. I turned and rushed headlong into water. Others did the same. There were splashes of people in the new boats, leaping into the water. The Martians took no notice for a moment of people in water. They swung the generator of their heat ray towards the batteries that were still firing across the river. Immediately the 6 guns, which unknown to anyone on the right bank, had been hidden behind the outskirts of that village, fired simultaneously. The fourth shell burst clean in the face of the thing. Its hood bulged, flashed, and burst into a dozen tattered fragments of red flesh and glittering metal. "Hit!" I shouted with something between a scream and a cheer. The headless monster, though hit, reeled like a drunken giant and lunged swiftly upon Shepperton. Though no living creature, the Martians inside the hood, was there to guide it. It drove straight, struck the tower of Shepperton Church, smashed it, and fell with great force into the river. As the camera of the heat ray struck the water, the latter immediately flashed into steam. I heard people screaming and shouting in the face of the hot wave that struck them. The fallen fighting machine was seen, with the gigantic limbs, struggling for life amid the waves. I saw the other Martians coming with huge strides down the river bank from the direction of Jersey. I ducked once again in the water and held my breath. The water was growing hotter rapidly. Soon the Martians reached the ruins of their comrade, 200 yards away from me, while two stood beside their comrade. The third and fourth moved the generators of the heat rays, causing total destruction all round. The rays flickered up and down the road, near the river, and left no one alive. A huge wave, well nigh the boiling point, rushed over me. I screamed aloud and scalded, half blinded, agonized. I staggered to the shore. I fell helplessly inside of the Martians. I expected nothing but death. I have a dim memory of a foot of a Martian coming down towards my head, and then two of the four carrying the debris of their comrade between them. I realized slowly that by a miracle I had escaped. Chapter 8. In London. After getting a lesson in the power of earthly weapons, the Martians retreated to their original position upon Horsell Common. They were in no hurry. Cylinder followed cylinder. Every 24 hours brought them reinforcements, and meanwhile the military and naval authorities, now fully alive to the tremendous strength of their enemy, worked furiously. Every minute a fresh gun came into position, until before twilight every bush, every row of suburban villas hid an expectant gun from Kingston to Richmond, while the Martians behind me were preparing for their next attack. The humanity gathered in front of me for the battle. With great pain and labor, I made my way from Weybridge towards London. I saw an abandoned boat, went after it, gained it, and so escaped out of destruction. I landed at Middlesex Bank and lay down deadly sick among the long grass. I was very thirsty, talked to myself constantly, and finally lay in exhausted sleep. When I woke up, I saw a curate sitting next to me. "Have you any water?" I asked abruptly. He shook his head. "You have been asking for water for the last hour," he said. For a moment we were silent and stared at each other. "What does it mean?" he said. "What do these things mean?" I stared at him and made no answer. "I was walking through the roads to clear my brain," he said, "and suddenly fire, earthquake, death." "Are we far from Sunbury?" I asked him. "Only this morning I officiated at early celebration. Things have changed," I said quickly. "You must keep your head. There is still hope." "Hope?" "Yes, plentiful hope for all this destruction." "But how can we escape?" he asked. "They are invulnerable, they're pitiless. One of them was killed yonder not 3 hours ago," I replied. "Killed?" "I saw it happen," I proceeded to tell him. "The Martians are here. But London Ward, where those hills rise above Richmond and Kingston, and the trees give cover, guns are being placed, people are preparing to give battle." And even as I was speaking, he sprang to his feet and stopped me with a gesture. "Listen," he said. From beyond the hills, across the water, came the sound of distant guns and remote, weird crying. Then everything was still. I got up and told him that we had to follow the sound, go northward towards London. My younger brother was in London when the Martians failed at walking. He was a medical student and had heard nothing till Saturday of the Martians. The afternoon papers gave scraps of news under big headlines. Nothing was known about the fighting that night, the night I drove to Leatherhead and back. On Sunday morning, London was electrified. Majority of Londoners did not hear of the Martians until the panic of Monday morning. Most people in London do not read Sunday papers. No one in London knew positively of the nature of the armored Martians. The Sunday papers mentioned only that the people of Walton and Weybridge were pouring along the roads Londonward. My brother was still not alarmed. The sun was setting when he met a couple of boys who had just rushed out of Fleet Street with still wet newspapers and placards. Dreadful catastrophe, they cried. Fighting at Weybridge, repulse of the Martians, London in danger, they shouted at the top of their voices. Then it was only then that he realized the power of these monsters. The newspaper report was optimistic. The Martians had been repulsed. They were not invulnerable. They were strange and terrible, but they were only 20 against our millions. There could not be more than 5 in each cylinder, 15 altogether, and one had been disposed of. The government was taking every step to protect the people. Walking from the Strand to Trafalgar Square, he met some of the fugitives from Surrey. He turned towards Victoria. He saw the same haggard look on the people pouring in. None of them could say anything more than Woking had been destroyed the previous night. About 8 o'clock, a noise of heavy firing was distinctly heard all over south of London. My brother reached his apartment at 2, fearing the worst had happened to me. He went to bed after midnight and was awakened in the small hours of Monday by the sound of door knockers, feet running in the street, and a clamour of bells. He jumped out of the bed and ran to the window. "They are coming!" shouted a policeman, hammering at the door. "The Martians are coming!" And he hurried to the next door. My brother began to dress hurriedly. And suddenly, men selling unnaturally early newspapers came shouting into the street. "London in danger of suffocation. The Kingston and Richmond defences forced. Fearful massacres in the Thames Valley." It was the dawn of the great panic and fear. London, which had gone to bed on Sunday night obvious and inert, was awakened on Monday morning to a vivid sense of danger. The whole population of the 6 million was stirring, running, pouring en masse northward. Black smoke, the voices cried. "Fire!" My brother put some £10 into his pocket and ran into the streets.